Hi, this is Luke Robbins, and this is my reporting for CSC486, the Omega Race game. Then let's go. Okay, so here is my client side of the game. Let me just get started. I'm on the load screen right now, and I'm going to hit spacebar to get going, which will bring me to the lobby. I'll go to lobby on my host as well, start hosting. And now when I click J here, I will connect to the server, and I see on my server computer that the client's IP has shown up. So now I'll press space one more time to start the game. And let me just give a little demo. I restored all the numbers back to their original defaults. So I'm going to play a full game with its multiple rounds over here. Now you can see the collisions and particle bursts, and the ship getting killed by the missile, and multiple missiles over there. And so now you can see the points updating, and right here, that was the last one. And so player 1 just won the first round for me, the green, and the client is player 1 over here. And it still keeps track of the total number of kills and deaths. I think not resetting that between rounds was the correct way, so I just decided to go with that. So now in this new round, everything's still working. And the player is sent to the other side as they're killed. Bouncing around and reset. And this is going to be the last one before this game is over. Go. Sometimes testing this game can be the most difficult part of developing it here. But we just have one more, and then that'll be it. Okay. And so that was 3, and so player this player 1, and I think this screen, I just have to switch around the variable for P2 versus P1, because that was P1 that won. But here we go. This is the end screen, and if I click spacebar, it'll bring me back to the load screen. Same thing on the host side, and it's essentially like starting from scratch. So I'll go back to the lobby. I'll spin up the server. I'll press J to join, and on both sides, I will press spacebar to get going. I won't play a second full game over here, but just demoing that everything is still working. So when I hit the fences, get my little particle, shooting this guy. Boom. And just play one full cycle and then not the full thing. And there we go. So let me get out of the game for a second and take a look at some of the code. In terms of input queue and output queue, it's this is where I'm handling all my messages and all my data that I'm sending back and forth here. And this input queue class and output queue are where those are, obviously. When something happens, immediately just push it onto the input queue with add, and when it processes it, if it's marked as local to handle on this machine, I will just do so and add it to this output queue. Otherwise, I will send it to the server for that to handle it. So if I do it locally on the output queue, it's like we've seen here, just add it and then processing it, and then passing it over to Game Manager. I know we discussed that, like realistically in this particular case, we can just say Game Manager.receive message, but I didn't know if I was going to have to modify that later on, and I didn't want to have to try and remember all of them, so I just did it as I went. If we go over to Game Manager, we can see that receive message method, and so depending on the state of the game, if it's play, it'll do things like move in, player update, missile update, bombs, which I stupidly called mines early on, but it was too late to change, or at least I didn't want to mess something up, so I just left it as bomb. If it's lobby, we can start the game. If it's add point, we can handle that, and if it's game over, then we can return to the load screen. So load game update, which is just changing that state, and then so player movement. I split up input into player movement and things like missiles and mines or bombs. right here. So in the input, I just have a class with some static methods that did that processing, so I could take that out of the main class. We can have messages for movement, one for missiles, and one for bombs, and then pushing that onto it. There we go. Yep. And some of the other ones are just things like missile updates. So as the missile moves along, this way the client isn't, keeping track of its own missile. It's just being told, kind of where to draw it at any point in time. Bomb message. Some of the stuff was actually done on the client. It was working, fine. So there wasn't really any need to push it over. It didn't have anything to do with physics. And so, maybe this, wasn't too costly of a thing to have here. Particle burst messages is just for some, like for the shit hitting the fences. This was just an indication for the client to, show that kind of effect as it hits it. Missile hit messages, we have things for, once the ship is actually dying, and then some, game state type stuff. And you can see in data message, which is where I have all of these things, I've got my enums for all the different events, my abstract class, which all of them inherit from, with a couple things like local and type. Early on, I had an extra one called host, so I could see where it actually originated, because kind of one of my early iterations had messages going to the server and then ended up pushing it back to the back to the client to do something, but that was not really working out. So this is just an appendix over here. And so my messages are kind of organized this way, just setting them up. And then in terms of serializing my methods, I included, instead of doing the wrapper class, like I think I saw on a demo in class, I just wrote the type of the data message into the message itself. So I didn't have to have, something that had the kind of that header type thing with type, and I think you put the local into that header. So I just packaged it all up in data message, and that seemed to be working. And here it's just initializing and then creating it again, and so that's pretty straightforward. On the client side, on things like missiles, like I said, I left some functionality in there, on hit, because the audio manager is just going to work fine, and particle spawner. But that's something I guess I could consider looking at. But as you can see, I did rip out all the stuff involving physics, so all that is handled on the server side, and so that doesn't have to handle it. The lobby took a little bit of fiddling when it came to the kind of game cycling, but other than that, it seemed to work out pretty well, pretty neatly. And yeah, missiles, mines, ships. I really didn't mess with game object too much on this side, just kind of let it do its thing. But in Game Manager, I did change it so that I kind of some sublists for each of the different types of things, like missile list, bomb list, fence list. And the reason I did this was initially I was having some issues with my collisions. I was using the object ID to search through that or object list, but I wasn't finding them. I think later on I discovered that wasn't actually the issue, but by that point everything was working fine, and I guess honestly searching through these shorter sublists worked anyway, especially with things like missiles, where I was going to be processing a lot of them, and only having to search through a list of 3 missiles wasn't going to be an issue. And yeah, I think that's about it. I think I got everything working. It seemed to be going pretty well at the end there. All the graphics work, all the collisions work, cycling, the sounds, the particles, and I think that's about it. Everything is data driven within here. Everything's passing through these 2 queues in terms of messages, and that's about it. Yep, got my host on my other machine. I'm talking over the network. I'm using get local peers, I think it was, methods. So nothing is hard set. It's just finding whatever's broadcasting on the network. And so here we are. I got my